Good morning, my friend. I hope you're doing well. It's 4:30 in the morning on the 5th of March, 2021. I got to tell you, this is at least the fifth time I've tried to sit down and record this episode. I wanted to have another episode 2 days ago, Wednesday. Today's a Friday, because I'm trying to have more consistent output. We had our best month, by far, best month of the podcast ever last month, and something happened that challenged my confidence a little bit. It's a crazy thing how the devil does that, right? You start to see some evidence that God is finally getting you where He wanted you to be, and then fear comes in, or something happens, and your confidence gets shaken. And I had a little bit of that earlier in the week, and I kept trying to bring this episode to you. I thought I had something that I wanted to bring to you, and I recorded the entire thing on Wednesday morning to release, and the Lord just stopped me. He said, "It's not ready. You don't have that message right yet. That's not what I want you to bring out." And so I stopped, and I re-recorded it twice in its entirety yesterday, and it still wasn't ready to go. There's just something missing, and now I know what it was. I had a couple of amazing emails this week, and it kind of just reframed my thinking and added what I needed to get this word to you that I'm sure is from the Lord. There's some stuff that I think is really going to help you that we're going to talk about today. It's day 5 of the crane invasion of 2021. Last night we just watched in amazement as wave after wave after wave of sandhill cranes came right by our living room window and landed in the river. It's just amazing. The dogs have gotten used to it. They're not freaking out anymore. And we saw at least 30 white-tailed deer walking in the river at the same time. I counted 30 individuals. I could see more in the bush on the north side of the river that were not in the water, but I couldn't count them individually. But there were at least 30 individuals in the water walking upstream at the same time. It was just an amazing sight, and we get to see this beautiful place that God has created and that Dale and Joe Margaret's stewarded for Him for a while, and now it's our turn to steward this little corner of the earth, and we're super grateful. Hey, would you do me a favor and pray for our little guys, Harvey and Lewis? They're having surgery today. We don't need to go into the details too much, but just make sure there won't be any additional super pups around down the road, and to hopefully calm down some of the dinosaur combat activity that we're having. They're going to have a little procedure today that should change the hormonal balance of those guys. So just be praying for Harvey and Lewis that they'll come through that okay. And also, on Tuesday, I received an email in the morning that was pretty challenging for me. I think I'm gonna do an episode about it at some point, but pretty challenging. A gentleman wrote and kind of had some hard things to say about his opinion of some of the things that I'm doing spiritually, and some of the things that I talked about in my book that he doctrinally disagreed with. And it was just kind of challenging. We have some people in the body of Christ that when we talk about the Lord's army, they think that means we're supposed to shoot each other instead of fighting the enemy. Anyway, so that was kind of challenging, and it always kind of takes you back when somebody says something really super negative to you. But later that same day, I received another email. This is just such a God thing. Later that same day, Lisa and I received an email from a beautiful young lady. She's 23. Her name is Esther. She lives in Canada. And Esther has shared her story with us before. It's an amazing story that hopefully someday I can share with you if I get her permission. But Esther has found the Lord again. She grew up knowing Him, then kind of had a few really rough years, and now she's found Him again. And she gave us some credit for the podcast and the books that have helped her and helped her kind of find some hope again, and said some really nice things. But then she shared a video link, and she said, I don't know why I feel like I need to share this with y'all, but I want you to see it. And it was her church service last weekend in Canada, in which she was baptized. And so she sent this amazing little video. They took her testimony, she gave her public testimony, and then she was baptized. And now she's a fully invested member of the body of Christ. And I hope that you'll take a second today, wherever you are, to pray for your new sister in Christ, Esther. She got a lot of good people around her there where she lives in Canada. But as you know, if you know the Lord, and if you've ever tried to really make major changes in your life, like we're doing in Mind Change March, there will be challenges for her. So I'm just asking you to rise up and join in the spiritual warfare for Esther, that she might be blessed and have an amazing and long, successful walk with the Lord, and that she'll do great things in His kingdom and in her life. And before we get started with today's episode, the thing that was holding me back, I think, has been lifted, number one, by Lisa praying for me and helping me reframe my thinking as we get into Mind Change March, and I've had a little bit of trouble getting started. But I also I subscribe to an email from John Swanson every day. I've told you about him before, but John Swanson is a hospital chaplain and pastor. Dr. John Swanson, he's got a PhD. He's been on the podcast a couple of times before, and he's in Indiana. And he writes a little blog called 300 Words a Day, and the website is 300 Words a Day. It's the number 300 wordsaday.com. All smashed together, 300wordsaday.com. That's one of the things that I try to read every day, because he's always got a little word that's just really helpful. I'm going to take a drink of coffee. Hang on. It's my black silk helping me get my voice under control this morning. John wrote yesterday a little blog that he does, like I said, every day. And that one the thing that was holding me back, getting my brain right to record what we're going to talk about today, I just had felt a little sense of illegitimacy, like I had this message, but I didn't feel like, I didn't believe in it. I didn't believe that it was my voice to bring it to you somehow. I don't know why I was thinking that way. But I think that's, like I said, I think that's spiritual warfare. And John came right at the right moment with this email, and I didn't read it until last night. And then I get up this morning, and I'm ready to go. And here's the email. John said, Peter used the example of Jesus, who did great work, including healing people, proclaiming spiritual freedom, and offering hope. He was attacked for this and eventually killed. The attack came because he claimed that his authority was from God, that his identity was God. He followed his path of good work, and that led to his death, Peter says. For us. He did it for us. As I was reflecting about this, John said, I thought, what if we asked God to help each other do great work? What if we ask God to help each other do great work? For me to ask God to help you to be faithful in your work, regardless of whether it gets noticed. To be astonishingly creative, to be able to respond with graciousness when people are foolish, to find connections between people and ideas and problems and solutions that no one has been able to think of before, to be accurate about the numbers in our accounting sheets when we're tired, to be kind even when we're changing the 14th bedpan of the day. I mean, God knows stuff, and if we ask for insight, He can give it. If we ask for wisdom, He can give it. If we ask for patience or delight or perseverance, He can build it in us. So that's what I'm asking on your behalf. I just thought you all should know that. John came with that amazing message where he flipped the script. Instead of praying for God to bless him and his work, he's praying that God will bless me and my work and you and your work, to be astonishingly creative, to be able to handle it when people criticize you. And when you put your life out there and people say hard things that hit you right in the heart, and get to some of those old places where the church may have hurt you in the past, you need to be able to bounce back from that. And all of a sudden you realize that somebody's praying for you out there to clear that stuff up, that God would just make a way for you. That's what we need to be doing for each other, friend. And I'm going to tell you right now, you've got that in me and Lisa. We are praying for you. And that's why we created the prayer wall at the website, wle1md.com/prayer. There's an amazing little community, over 100 people now, back and forth every day, praying for each other, sharing their prayer requests and answering, letting us know when prayers have been answered, and clicking the button that says, I prayed for this, and somebody gets an email and tells you that, hey, somebody prayed for you just now for this thing that you posted. We are out there as part of a family, even though we've never met each other face to face, most of us, who are now connected through the Spirit, through the blood and love of Jesus Christ, and we're helping each other. And John is praying for me and for you that we'll do great work. And that's what I'm praying for you today, friend, that you'll do great work today, because God has stepped in and given you what you need to get through whatever you have to do today, or whatever you're facing today. Thank you, John, for that. John Swanson, 300wordsaday.com. I can't encourage you highly enough to check it out. His work has been immensely valuable to me, and his friendship has been immensely valuable to me. And he's the Pastor John in my book. I've seen the interview. I named him John because to make a little bit of honor towards John Swanson and how useful and helpful he's been to me in my life. So check it out, 300wordsaday.com. Hey, listen, there's a lot going on in the world right now. A lot of people are nervous. The markets are up and down. People are losing money in their stock, in their investments right now. People are scared a little bit about where the country's going. The economy's not doing what it has been doing for the last 4 years, and people are nervous. There's a lot happening. And so I want to bring you a thought today about an investing term that's called paper losses. Paper losses. Paper losses are where something on paper looks like it's less valuable than it was the day before. And in your brain, if you don't understand that a paper loss is not really a loss until you sell it at a lower price than where you bought it, then that can get in your brain. It can create panic, and it can cause you to make bad decisions with your investments, and you can make a real disaster out of something that was just on paper. And I'm going to talk about that. And this episode is not about money, but it's one of those times when we have to talk about one thing to get to the heart of something else. And so we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about how not to make a real disaster out of the paper losses in your life. And as always, Tommy Walker is going to help us start today. Hey, I'm so glad to have you listening today. I am Dr. Lee Warren, and I live in Nebraska on the bank of the North Platte River in the United States of America with my incredible wife. Amazing, beautiful wife, Lisa Warren, and the super pups who are going to be a little sore this evening, Harvey and Lewis, and they're getting used to the sandhill crane, so that's good. I'm a neurosurgeon and an author, and I'm here to help you harness neuroscience, the power of your brain, faith, the power of your spirit, and good old common sense to help you lead a healthier, better, happier life. Listen, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and I'm here to help you learn the art of self-brain surgery. To get that done, you can get the show notes and more on my website at wleewarrenmd.com, and please add the /newsletter. Listen, you need to have community, and the wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter is the way to get connected to this community. We're building you an app, so you'll be able to do it online soon, but the only way to know about when the app releases will be through the newsletter, so sign up today, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter. You can add the /prayer for the prayer wall, and you can add the /support if you feel so led to help us take this message farther and farther. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I like Podbean. You can listen to it anywhere, but subscribe to this show so you always get new episodes on the Podbean app, drleewarren.podbean.com. You can also get the special stuff that's only available for partners of the podcast. Check it out. Hey, I'm Dr. Lee Warren, and we are changing our minds so we can change our life. It's Mind Change March. Let's get after it. I love this part when Tommy plays. Man, I wish I could play like that. Okay, how's Mind Change March going for you, really? I'd love to hear from you, Lee at Dr. Lee Warren. I would love to hear you tell me how Mind Change March is going. In the OR on Tuesday, I got to meet a man named Mike. He's from Illinois. And Mike's been writing in for a long time. He's been emailing back and forth and letting me know who he is. He's a medical device distributor, and he lives in Illinois. And we use some of his products in the operating room. But our local distributor is out of Omaha, a guy named Justin, who's a great guy. I don't know if you're listening, Justin, but shout out to Justin if you are. Anyway, Mike came down to do some work with Justin, and since he was pretty close by, he thought he would come to our hospital, and I got to meet him. And it's one of the few times I get to meet somebody in real life who I've only known in the digital realm. Mike has shared before that he's been in church his whole life, but he's never read the Bible, and he's part of our 90-day Bible challenge. By the way, we're 72 days. Well, Lisa and I started a few days early, but we're 72 days into the 90-day read through the Bible. We're in the New Testament now, and it's amazing to see God's story compressed like that and read it like a book. It's really amazing. And if you haven't done it, I would encourage you to get in the Bible, as we talked about a lot of times before. But we got to meet Mike and talk to him, and it was great. And 2 weeks ago in Florida, we got to meet Tom McPhail and his lovely wife, Yangzi, and Jim and Patty DeJong. They are just beautiful, lovely people that we've been conversing with over the internet through the community, the wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter community. for a long time. So getting to meet people face to face is really cool. And that's going to be even infinitely cooler when we get to go to heaven and we get to meet people that we've been reading about in the Bible, and relatives and ancestors and all kinds of people we never met in the real life. It's going to be such an amazing eternal time, and I'm excited about it. When I get to meet somebody in real life who I didn't know before, it just warms up my heart. This is a great community. And that, my friend, is why we're building out the Infinitely Happier app. We're going to give you an alternative to spending your time on Facebook looking at the superficial, shallow details of people's lives, and we're going to give you a place where you can get to know other people and help each other and grow together and learn new things and share your struggles. It's going to be an amazing, infinitely better app. That's what it's going to be. Hey, you remember James Clear's quote that I showed you last time? He said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. Now we're getting into this 93-mile march, and I told you the day we started that my cousin Will and I had agreed we're going to do a 5K, 3.12 miles every day during March. Well, I had a screeching halt to that. I did my 5K on Monday. I did my 5K on Tuesday. Wednesday, I got interrupted. I only got 1.5 miles. So I thought, well, no problem. I'll knock out 4.5 on Thursday. Well, guess what? Some guys came to town. I forgot we had meetings, and my old friend Rob Brooks from Alabama came to show us some new products. And Rob was in town. We had lunch. We met with these other folks. And by the end of the day, we just didn't get it done. So now I have a 4.5 mile deficit to make up because I have committed to Will that we're going to get this 93-mile march done. So now I got to ask you for prayers about that. I got a little bit of work to do to catch up, right? So I don't know where you are on Mind Change March, but I'm certain that some things have been challenging for you. And I just want to remind you that you can't build the city in one day. You can't change your body in one day. You can't change your whole financial future in one day, but you better start laying some bricks, right? You better start getting after it. And if you're behind, make it up. Work a little bit harder. You can do it. Just don't give up, right? Don't say, well, I messed up March. I got to wait till April. No, start today. That a pretty smart guy that we both know once started a podcast that he called You Start Today. Because that's what you do. If you have a problem, if you have a challenge, if you have a day when you don't make it, then just do a little bit more the next day. Don't try to kill yourself. Just get after it, right? Now, let's get down to business. We're 17 minutes into an episode. We haven't gotten down to business yet. I'm sorry. But I had a lot on my mind. There's been a lot of talk about the stock market. It's not performing like we've gotten used to. We got a little spoiled in the last 4 years. The market just kept going up, and even during COVID, we had a little problem in March, and it just came back, and so we've gotten a little spoiled with that, and now we're seeing that leadership really does matter, and we're seeing some fluctuation in the market, and people aren't sure what's happening, and so every day, if you're the kind of person who looks at what's happening financially, if you've got a stock account or you are concerned about those sorts of things, you'll notice that one day you make a little bit of money, the next day you lose a whole bunch. It's fluctuating. But I want to remind you, if you've known before, or teach you if you haven't known, that daily fluctuations in the stock market are not real gains and losses for you. Not right then. Because there's something that you have to understand. If you own an asset, if you own a stock, if you own a car, if you own a bar of gold, if you own a rookie Wayne Gretzky card like my son-in-law Nate has, that's a whole nother story. But Nate is an amazing collector of valuable things, and he has a knack for finding them very cheaply and turning them into valuable investments. And he has a Wayne Gretzky rookie card that he bought for a couple of $100. It's now worth $4,000 or $5,000. That's a wise investment. It's not just a baseball or not just a hockey card. It's actually an investment that he's made. But when you have an asset like a stock or something that you own, if the market changes a little bit one day to the next, then sometimes you can buy something. Let's say you bought a stock that cost $100, or a piece of a bar of gold that was worth $100 today. And then you wake up tomorrow and you turn on the news and you see something happened overnight. There's a pandemic, or there was a war, or there was a company that didn't perform well, and all of a sudden the market is fluctuating. And that thing that you bought for $100 yesterday, today people are selling and buying for $50. Then you're going to say in your brain, holy cow, I lost $50. I lost half of my money. But the fact is, you didn't actually lose it unless you sell it for that lower price. Does that make sense? That's a paper loss. It's a loss on paper only. And if you just wait, most of the time, eventually, those things sort themselves out, and they figure out that the pandemic's not going to kill us all, or they figure out that the war's not really going to start, or whatever, the politician's really not going to do this thing or that thing, or the Federal Reserve's not going to raise interest rates, or they are, then eventually those things tend to sort themselves out. So the problems happen sometimes when people don't have time to wait. Like it happened in 2008 when the financial crisis happened. My father-in-law and I were talking about this. Like if you were at the age where you were about to retire, or if you had already retired and all the money you had was in a 401k or an IRA or something, if that's all you had and all of a sudden it was worth half of what it was the day before, and you don't have time to wait for the market because you depend on that income and you're drawing some of it out every month to live on, that's a real deal, right? That's a big problem. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, for the purposes that we're hearing today, let's say that you're not in that situation and you're just checking your E-Trade account, or you're just checking the value of whatever this is. It's not really a loss to you unless you sell it, unless you cash out, unless you give up while things are volatile and you're scared. And so to talk about that a little bit, to talk about this idea of paper losses, I want to tell you a story about two friends of mine. One is my brother-in-law, real life Ronnie Gombert, brilliant guy. And I'm going to call him Rested Ronnie, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And the other person, I'm not going to tell you who they really are because I don't want to hurt their feelings, because they're an amazing person, but I'm going to talk about an aspect of their character that's going to help you understand this paper loss issue. So I'm not going to identify them by gender or real name, but I'm just going to use a male pronoun, and we're going to call this person, my other friend, who I dearly love, we're going to call him Sweaty Sam, okay? Sweaty Sam. So we're going to talk about Rested Ronnie and Sweaty Sam. Now, this episode is not about money. You know, sometimes when you're talking and somebody will say, hey, not to interrupt you, but, and then they go on to interrupt you. You know what I mean? They said not to interrupt, not to change the subject, but, and then they go on to do the thing they said not, that they were not doing. This is sort of what we're doing today. We're not talking about money, but we're going to talk about money because I need to get you on the same page with me to make the point that we're going to try to make today, okay? It's a story about money to make a point that we're going to make about life that I think is going to help you do some self-brain surgery. And it might even give you some bonus financial brain surgery along the way, depending on how you're wired financially. But before I tell you the story of Rested Ronnie and Sweaty Sam, I'm going to give you some background. There's an online website that's pretty useful if you're interested in financial things. The Motley Fool is an investing website, fool.com, Fool.com. And I've been reading them for years. I did not think about money growing up. My parents were wise, they were savvy. My dad made a good living and did a good job and all of that. But I just had this aversion to talking about money. I didn't like it. I didn't think about it. And I had a notion that income meant wealth. I didn't understand that how much money you make is not the same thing as how much money you have. And I always in my brain, I was going to be a doctor. I knew I was going to make a good living, and I just never cared about it, never worried about it. And that created some problems for me in my life. And someday we'll talk about some of those things probably. But I had to learn as I got older about investing and about budgeting and about finance and all those things. And it's been a lot of fun to learn these things in my adult life. And so I years ago started reading and learning and studying and trying to get better at managing money because I want to leave behind something for my grandkids that empowers them and breaks some generational issues and helps people in the future. And to be a good steward of what God has given us. Lisa and I are committed to being good financial stewards. So we read The Motley Fool as one of the sites that we look at. There's a good article about the psychology of investing. And I want to read this to you. There's a guy named Morgan Housel that wrote a great book called The Psychology of Money. I can recommend it. But he wrote a little article on The Motley Fool, and let me just read it to you. When good skills are mixed with bad behavior, it's the behavior that dominates. And let me tell you, investing is the same. Intelligence is a hard analytical skill. Behavior is a softer, mushier kind of advantage. We tend to focus more on skill than on behavior because it's easier to measure and seems more rigorous. But behavior, I think you'll see, is the side of the equation that matters most. It's not that behavior is more important than intelligence. Intelligence is wonderful, but even a little poor behavior can neutralize a lot of intelligence. I'm going to read that again. Even a little poor behavior can neutralize a lot of intelligence. You can be the best stock picker in the world, but if you panicked and sold in March of 2020 or in 2008 when it felt like the economy was falling apart, none of your stock intelligence mattered because you lost your money. Understanding the technical mechanics of how investing works, what technology is promising, and how the economy functions are important parts of becoming a great investor. But none of those things matter until you can master a handful of key behavioral mindsets. Here they are. Here are the 3 key behavioral mindsets that Morgan Housel wants us to master. Number 1, accept and endure volatility while remaining optimistic about the long run. Number 2, keep your expectations in check and live below your means. Number 3, prepare for surprise. Let me read them again. Accept and endure volatility while remaining optimistic about the long run. Keep your expectations in check and live below your means, and prepare for surprise. Now, that sounds an awful lot like the 5 true things that I told you about in the last episode. Remember, I told you my friend Clay that we met in Florida shared with me a book by David Richo called 5 True Things, a little guide to embrace life's big challenges. Now, in the context of what I just told you from Morgan Housel, accept and endure volatility while remaining optimistic about the long run, keep your expectations in check and live below your means, and prepare for surprise. He's talking about money. Remember what David Richo said about life. Everything changes and ends. Things don't always go according to plan. Life is not always fair. Pain is a part of life, and people are not loving and loyal all the time. Don't they sound awfully familiar? If you change your approach to your struggles, David Richo said, you can find deep happiness. And Morgan Housel said, if you embrace these things, if you prepare for surprise, then you can actually be successful as an investor. So I want you to start seeing the psychology of investing and the psychology of handling hard things in a similar vein. You'll become a better investor if you do. You'll also become more resilient and better at life. This is the home run sentence when when David Richo said, by changing our approach to our struggles, we can find deep happiness. That's the home run sentence. I could pretty much stop right there. Change your approach, change your mind, you will change your life. That's where the self-brain surgery comes into place, right? Let me read you Morgan Housel's sentence, the paragraph that came next. He said this: amid a backdrop of long-term progress is a never-ending chain of bad news, recessions, bear markets, financial crises, pandemics, wars, disasters, job losses, and business failures. They are normal. They happen. They keep happening. There's nothing you can do about it. If you're prepared, you'll be fine. Now, friend, this is exactly why I'm writing Infinitely Happier, and it's because of the quantum physics of Jesus' dual promises. Now, let me back up. Early in the Dr. Lee Warren podcast, episode 4 or 5, back in the early days, I did a story about quantum physics. Now, you don't have to be a math major to understand this, but when you look at the normal world, there's some principles and laws that you understand. If I'm looking at my pair of shoes on my desk that are reminding me that I need to get on the Peloton in a few minutes, I'm looking at those shoes, and they are in one place. I know exactly where they are. But on the quantum level, down at the micro electron microscope level, an electron can actually be in 2 places at once, essentially. That's a quantum physics principle that makes everything work. That's how you have a television and can put a man on Mars. That's how I'm talking to you wirelessly over your device right now. Quantum physics is how the universe runs at the very, very tiny levels, and it's different than the observable universe. The rules are different down there. The math is different, and that's why it takes really, really smart people to figure that stuff out, and aren't we glad that they did? But the quantum physics tells us that an electron can be in 2 places at once, and that's the secret to understanding what Jesus was saying, and the fact that Jesus is telling the truth when in the book of John he said 2 things. In this world you will have trouble, and I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. So I just want to help you understand that's a quantum concept, that you will have a hard life. As Housel said, there's going to be bear markets and recessions and financial crises and pandemics and wars. And David Richo is saying there's going to be cancer, there's going to be divorce, there's going to be bankruptcy. All of these things, they're going to happen. So, okay, don't set your life Don't set your ability to be happy and have a high quality of life and your peace of mind on requiring that you have an easy life, because you are not going to. You are not going to have an easy life. And as soon as you understand that, then you can say, okay, Jesus said, I'm going to have a hard time, but he said he also came here and went through all of this so that I could have an abundant life. Those seem impossible. It seems like a Hobson's choice, but it's not. It's true that you can have both, and that's why I'm doing Infinitely Happier. That's why we're building you an app. That's why I'm doing this podcast, because I want you to be the person who can land in that spot and say, yes, it's hard. Yes, I'm happy. I want to help you to be able to accept that it's hard. You're going to get past that, and you're going to be happy anyway. Now, what in the world does that have to do with Rested Ronnie and Sweaty Sam? Well, let me tell you. Ronnie sleeps like a baby. My brother-in-law, Ronnie, works for a large corporation, and he works in the finance area, and he makes billion-dollar investments for this corporation. Big money. I mean, his department involves moving tons of money around, and he is a wise and gifted financial guy. But because of that, he's limited by federal law in the types of investments that he can personally make for his own family. Ronnie can't open an E-Trade account and buy stocks or put money in Bitcoin. He can't do those things because he's required to basically obtain permission from the federal government anytime he wants to make a personal investment. So instead of that, he's allowed to invest in a certain group of mutual funds and index funds and things that the company has that are approved for him to put his money into. So Ronnie has an automated investment plan. His whole career, he's been putting part of his money away, and he just gives that amount of money every month into his investment account. And guess what? He sleeps like a baby. Ronnie doesn't have to worry about what the stock he bought yesterday and now it's not worth as much, or what's happening in the market. He's just going to have faith that the market generally works out. Because the reality is, if you look at a graph of the average returns of the Standard & Poor 500 to the U.S. stock market from 1900 to 2000, the fact is $1 invested in 1900 was worth about $23,000 in the year 2000. In other words, during a century in which we had a recession, a Great Depression, 2 world wars, Vietnam, Korea, all of that stuff happened in 100 years. $1 invested was worth $23,000 100 years later. So first of all, when you hear something like that, you say, great, why were my great-great-grandparents not buying stocks? Why were they not investors? Everything would be different if a couple of generations back had been investors. But since they weren't, we have to make a decision now. So as an aside, get yourself invested in the market, okay? If you want to have a successful future for you and your kids and your grandkids, then get yourself in the market. Now, not everybody should be buying stocks or buying bonds or doing that stuff individually, but you need to be putting money in your company's 401k. If you have one, take advantage of it. If you don't, you need a financial advisor. You need a Betterment account. You need some way to be getting some money out of your checking account and stop buying junk with it and start investing for the future with it. It will grow over time, and it will take care of you and your family down the road. That's a biblical principle of multiplying what God has given you. And if you want to have peace of mind and future success and break the chain of poverty and debt in your life, you need to be investing in the market. Get in the market, okay? Give 10% to God before you do anything else. If you do that, and then you give 10% to yourself to put in the market, and then live off of 80% or less of your income, you will never have to worry about money again eventually. That's a biblical principle. It's true. Get after it. Okay, Ronnie, because he doesn't have to worry about the day-to-day fluctuations in the market and he can just trust that it generally works out, he doesn't have stress in his life around that personal finance piece. He sleeps like a baby. But Sweaty Sam is the polar opposite. Now, my friend Sweaty Sam, like I said before, takes very good care of their family, is a good business person, makes a good amount of money and invests well and saves well and gives to their church and does all that. But they have another piece of their personality. This guy, again, I'm not saying who it is, has a knack for trading. He likes to get involved in short-term investments and he's looking for that one where you put $1,000 in and you take $100,000 out. He's always looking for that big investment, that big deal. And he likes to trade options. He makes short calls and he does all kinds of things every day. He's looking at what's happening with the market. And he'll text me and say, oh man, I made a big short play on Tesla and they're going up. I'm going to get hosed. Oh, did you see what happened with this? Or did you read that? He's just always worried about it, and not in a good way. He's overly stressed about his investments all the time. Now, fortunately for him and his family, he is pretty good at it, and he actually he makes a fair amount of money in that side part of his life, but it causes him a lot of grief, and he doesn't have peace about it. He's sweating bullets about his positions all the time. The difference between Rested Ronnie and Sweaty Sam is that short-term paper losses drive Sweaty Sam insane, and he struggles with peace because he has a problem looking at the screen and seeing paper losses. Drives him nuts. Now, here's why this episode is not about money. Too many times we forget the statement that I said a while ago from Housel. Housel said again, I'll read it again. Amid a backdrop of long-term progress is a never-ending chain of bad news. Recessions, bear markets, financial crises, pandemics, wars, disasters, job losses, business failures, they're normal. They happen. They'll keep happening. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you're prepared, that's fine. Now remember, there's always two things in play when the market is going down, friend. There are real economic forces like what the Federal Reserve is doing, what the big fund managers are doing, inflation, international events, all that. That's always real stuff that's happening. And there's the psychology of human beings who are worrying about what other people are doing. Those are the two forces that are in play when the market's going down or going up. So one way to get out of your limbic system, to get out of that deep part of your brain where there's fight or flight and scared and fear and all those parts of your emotional brain, one way to get out of that is to remember to remember. That's a phrase I came up with, and I want you to think about it. Remember to remember. The market always recovers. Over a long period of time, everything generally works out and gets better. The truth is, now remember this, when you're looking at a stock and the price is falling, remember that that's not just a number on a screen. A stock represents a piece of a real company that makes a product. For example, Apple. If Apple's stock price fell by 50% tomorrow, there would still be a company in California making iPhones and Apple Watches and Macs like I'm looking at right now when I'm talking to you. That company is still there. Those employees are still doing those things. The engineers are still making those great products, and they're still going to be in business. They've got orders on the books. You're going to want the next iPhone that comes out. Those companies are not disappearing every time the stock market drops a little bit. And so at the end of the day, that business is going to still produce the products and sell them to customers. And the stock price doesn't mean that the business is failing, right? So if you can get out of that scared part of your brain, you can say, hey, you know what? As the stock price gets cheaper, gets lower, actually that might create another buying opportunity for me. It might give me an opportunity to make a little bit more when it bounces back. Or maybe I'll just hold on because I know all these people are going to sell, and then people are going to start buying. The price is going to come back up, and I'm going to be okay. So while other people are panicking, you can start seeing opportunities, or you can start getting peace of mind and knowing that it's going to turn back around. If you hold when everybody's selling and just relax, because you know it's going to be okay eventually. Let your frontal lobe take over and remind you the truth. Remember to remember that there's a fundamental business out there that is solid. Let your frontal lobe take over. Just keep that limbic, that emotional brain in check, and don't let the fear of the paper loss make you make a bad decision and sell it while it's falling and turn into a real disaster because 2 days later it's back up. That's what happened in 2020. Lots of people sold. They got scared because of the pandemic. They sold everything as it started falling. And then other investors started buying. And people made a ton of money in 2020 because they bought when everybody else panicked. They stopped operating out of fear. They learned how to see paper losses for what they are. They're only on paper unless you sell them and turn them into real losses. Now, long term, if you struggle with anxiety over the daily movement of markets, just don't worry about it. Be more like Rested Ronnie. Get you an index fund, or get you a money manager, or call somebody you know who can handle that sort of thing better for you, and just put it in an online service and just invest, but don't stress, right? Then you'll be more like Rested Ronnie. Here's the reality. When the economy is fluctuant, we know there are experts out there working on it. We got smart people doing all they can to make it right, to improve things. And generally over time, it keeps getting better. And in real life, Here's something you can know. You can have great confidence that you have the wisest, kindest, smartest, and most successful person in the history of the universe, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, right there in your corner, ready to come through and make everything right for you all the time. There's something that happens in markets often where the prices seem to be falling all day long, and you're getting nervous, your paper losses are mounting, you're scared, and then all of a sudden there's a market rally late in the day and people start buying again and the prices go up. And sometimes you have this big rally and you end up finishing ahead in a day when it looked like you were behind. And it's a great turnaround. It's a late turnaround and you end up better off than you started, but those paper losses were bad at one point. And if you had sold, you would have been hosed. There's an amazing verse in Isaiah 43:19. Isaiah 43:19 that says, I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. There was a song written about that verse by Elevation Worship called Do It Again. And they say, you made a way when there was no way. You made a way when there was no way. And I know you can do it again. I've seen you move. You moved the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way. That's Isaiah 43:19. God is the God who shows up when all seems lost and makes a way for you when there was no way. We often react to hard things by getting down, like I said before, into our limbic systems, into our amygdala. That's where fight or flight, that's where panic, that's where fear, that's where anxiety comes from to protect us, we think, from the hard things and scary things in life. We forget that we have these giant frontal lobes that God gave us that can override those fear responses, and we can think our way through things. We can slip into fight or flight, and that sometimes makes us lash out, cover up the pain with alcohol, forget to remember, as I said before, and we forget that God will make a way when there is no way. We have a perfect biblical example of this in Asaph. In Psalm 77. I want to go through it with you in a minute. But before we go there, I want to give you the first ever reverse commercial in the Dr. Lee Warren podcast. Now, the other day, Lisa and I were talking, and we talked about the fact that we like that I don't have commercials on this podcast. You don't have to listen to somebody trying to sell you a car on my podcast. You don't have to hear that. But at the same time, there are some organizations that we believe in, that we donate our money to, that we love their mission and we love what they're doing for the kingdom, for helping the Lord spread his message far and wide. And we've thought, it would be really cool if we did kind of a reverse commercial. If we gave some of these organizations that we donate to an opportunity to have some space on our podcast so you could hear about some other good works. And maybe you might want to get involved. Maybe you want to learn from them or take something from them that will help you in your walk. So this is kind of a reverse commercial. And the first one I want to tell you about is John and Lisa Bevere's organization, Messenger International, and their new app called MessengerX. So just let me take a little break from the podcast to tell you about this exciting thing called MessengerX. It's one word, Messenger and the letter X, a new discipleship app that you can download on your app store at no cost to you. There are billions of people across the globe that still don't have access to discipleship resources, Bibles and training materials to teach the gospel to people or help them manage their church or preach the sermons or teach the Bible classes. As a result, there are people living and dying without ever hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. MessengerX is going to change that. The platform has courses, sermons, books, audiobooks, podcasts, short films, all kinds of things to help you grow in your faith and grow closer to God. And the best part is they're not just available in English. They've developed these in more than 100 different languages. So no matter where people are listening from, they can access life-transforming truth in their own language for free. So search for MessengerX in your app store. One word, MessengerX. That's one word, no spaces. MessengerX in the Apple or Google Play Store. Download the app. Visit MessengerX.com today and check it out. My friend, this will help you. And also, check out what they're doing and consider supporting them. The Bevere's organization is changing lives, eternal lives, changing the eternal destiny of people all over the world. MessengerX, check it out, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. Okay, not so bad for a commercial, right? A commercial that helps you, and you don't have to buy anything. Now, back to old Asaph in Psalm 77. And by the way, I'm giving you a long episode because I've got several listeners, thousands of listeners who listen to this podcast while they do extended workouts and all that. So we're going to have every week short episode, outpatient surgery, really quick things, and then some moderate half-hour episodes. We're going to once in a while give you something long. This is going to be an hour or so. So old Asaph in Psalm 77, I want you to be watching for two things in this passage. I call it the double whammy of fear, the oh no and the woe. The oh no and the woe. Watch for this. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject me forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Now notice what's happening here. Asaph is counting up his paper losses. Like he thinks everything's bad. Woe is me. Oh no, God's left us. He's all gone. There's a double whammy here. Oh no and woe is me. That's what starts happening when you're looking at your paper losses. Asaph is saying, God forgot us. He's left us. He's rejected us. He's never coming back. His unfailing love has vanished. Thanks a lot, God. Where'd you go? Woe is me, right? But then fortunately, Asaph snaps out of it. He doesn't panic sell, give up on God, kill himself, drink himself into oblivion. He doesn't get on the internet and look at porn. He doesn't divorce his wife and run away and go off into oblivion. He doesn't panic sell. He snaps out of it, and he remembers to remember who God really is. And here's how he does it. He looks back. Verse 10, then I thought, wait, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his right hand, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works. I will meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You are the God who displays your power. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people. So here's what he did. He stopped panicking. He got out of his limbic system and got into his frontal lobe, and he remembered to remember that God comes through. God causes the late market rally. God causes the fourth quarter comeback. We have a God who snaps us out of trouble and rescues us. Even when it seems impossible, he makes a way when there's no way. This is Moses in the Red Sea. The army's bearing down on them, and the people get right to the water's edge, and they're going to die. Basically, the army's going to overcome them, and they're going to get killed, and God parts the waters, and they walk across on dry land. That's the God of the fourth quarter comeback. This is the desert when the people are thirsty, and God gives them water out of the rock. He makes a way where there's no way. They're starving, and they're hungry, and he gives them manna and quail to eat. He makes a way where there was no way. It's Jericho. The people are walking around, and they think all is lost, and there's no way they're going to be able to overcome this city, and boom, the walls fall down. And by the way, historians say that when the Jericho walls fell, they fell in such a way that the walls that were keeping them out became ramps that allowed them to walk in. So God took the problem and made it the pathway. That's the fourth quarter comeback God. That's the God who doesn't let us lose with our paper losses. It's Joseph getting pulled out of prison at the last minute and ends up being the king. It's Daniel in the lion's den. It's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. It's Ruth finding Boaz and becoming Jesus' grandmother. It's Jesus calming the sea. Friend, it's the thief on the cross. It's the guy in the last minutes of his life. He's led a terrible life. He's been a criminal. He's been crucified. He's literally dying, and Jesus snaps him out of it and says, hey, you're not taking this loss, buddy. I got you. I'm going to see you in paradise today. Our God doesn't let us lose. Even if we lose in this life, if our body dies of the cancer, we don't recover from the loss. Even if we do, remember at the end, when all seems lost and everything is tough in the last days, there's going to be a trumpet. And when the trumpet sounds, we're all going to be okay. This is the God we serve, the God of the fourth quarter comeback. So stop cashing out your paper losses. When life seems to be bringing you something you cannot survive, when all seems lost, remember who makes a way when there is no way. Investors, the good ones, see the dips as opportunities. That's what Mind Change March is about, by the way. Oh, you're out of work? Good. Become an Uber driver. Learn a new skill. Sell on Amazon. Learn how to trade. Finally, write that book. If you have a little bit of time that God's given you, you can't find a job right now, do something else. Learn about investing. Learn, find a new way to do your thing, but keep taking care of your family. Oh, your relationship is on the rocks? Pray harder. Break the ice. Try again. I know there's some times when we can't get through them. I've been through a divorce. I know that. But you can always try to make it better. It's Mind Change March, right? Don't give up. Pray harder. Try again. Believe the fourth quarter comeback. Believe the market rally. Believe the trumpet's going to sound. Do you always win? No. But you're not going to just give up and cash out and take those paper losses and turn them into real disasters like Sweaty Sam. You're not going to do that anymore. You're going to be more like Rested Ronnie. You're going to have faith. Keep up your hope. Look for the play that you're going to use to make your fourth quarter comeback because the coach is with you. Remember Habakkuk's secret, the old prophet in the Old Testament I told you about. It was self-brain surgery. He stopped stewing in the bad neurochemistry cancers of if only this had happened or when this would happen. And he swapped all that out for the very powerful though and yet. Though there's no food, yet I'm going to have hope. Though there's no sheep, yet I'm going to believe. Though this is happening, yet I'm going to be okay because you are still with me. Asaph swapped oh no and woe for remembering to remember who God really is. And you can do that to your paper losses. And if you do, you'll watch those red numbers turn black. You'll be sleeping like Rested Ronnie before you know it because you changed your mind. And no more turning paper losses into real disasters, friend. It's Mind Change March. It's time to go. Panic selling is a fear response, and planning your comeback is a frontal lobe superpower. You have a God who makes a way when there is no way. He's good. He's for you, and he always will be. So let's get in our frontal lobes. Let's get out of our limbic system and get in our frontal lobes. Remember who he is. Stop cashing out paper losses and making them real disasters, and we're going to win. Are you ready, friend? Are you ready to become healthier, feel better, and be happier? It's Mind Change March. Are you ready to change your mind? There's only one thing left to do. You have to start today. Take it away, Tommy. Hey, thanks for listening. The Dr. Lee Warren podcast is brought to you by I've Seen the End of You, a neurosurgeon's look at faith, doubt, and the things we think we know, available from Waterbrook, Penguin Random House, everywhere books are sold. Don't forget to support your local booksellers, though, and don't forget to check out MessengerX app on your phone. Check it out, download it. It'll be helpful to you, I promise. Hey, subscribe to the show so you don't miss any episodes, and go to my website, wleewarrenmd.com, for more information about my letter, this show, my books, and more. And please add /newsletter, /prayer, /support, all kinds of great stuff there. The theme music for the show is Water into Wine by Tommy Walker, graciously provided for free by Tommy and the good people who are changing the world at Tommy Walker Ministries. You can get the music for free and consider supporting Tommy's great work at TommyWalkerMinistries.org. Remember, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and you have to start today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I'll talk to you soon. Pray for us. Pray for Harvey and Lewis. Pray for Esther, and have a great day. Keep rocking, Tommy.